by the way, note the pumice stone that we were talking about.
Oh, yeah.
That's the rocks you're gonna run into.
And when you run into it, it's not pumice-y.
It feels like
It's lava.
it's the worst feeling in the world.
But it's a lot of fun. You just, take a raft, you can come ashore, and walk around. Some years, I mean, there's not much more than a small outcropping of bushes on a high water year. Other times, there's quite a bit of space there. Ding. Okay. Also, we're not in a hurry when we do it. So sometimes I take kids or grandkids, and we'll stop along the way, pull out the spinnaker halyard and put it to its real purpose. Like kids swing off it. It's a fun trip, and you pack your boat full of food and everything. I mean, it's an enjoyable time. Next one. Okay, now this, before I hit play, this is one morning, fall 2 years ago, down in Lincoln Beach. When you go into the marina there, it's a little tiny space. You can just see this dock. You can maybe put 2 boats on it. But it's in the fall, it's really pretty because you've got this water that's warmer and the air's cold. You get this mist that rises off the lake. I mean, it is so pretty down there. Go ahead and hit play and just listen to the birds here.
Before you go, talk about navigating the channel there.
The channel into here is
Extremely narrow.
It's tricky. It's not so narrow that you can't fit your boat in, but there's 2 boats could pass if you were careful.
Like last year when me and Kent went in there, we have 4-foot draft boats, and my depth gauge was reading 4.1, 4.2, right in the dead center of the channel. So if you do go in there, don't hug a side. Go right down the middle.
Center.
And if there's any other boats in there, that's bad news. But usually that marine is just the little fishermen, like the John boats and stuff.
Yeah, and they'll go, what'll happen is in the morning, everybody's taken off fishing, and so people will drop their boats in, off their trailers here. They'll motor over to here, and someone's parked the trailer, they'll run around and hop on. So you've got a lot of traffic in the mornings. There's never any sailboats there. So as you go in, you can see if there's a sailboat there.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's just people stopping, just while they're getting on and off there.
Any facilities there?
Yeah, there's a campground there, so it's got bathrooms. It's actually pretty nice. There's a park down there and stuff. So it's a nice place.
It's a really fun place to
It is,
visit.
yeah.
Yeah, if you're just by yourself and you want to, I think that marina is it has a very uniqueness to it that the rest of the marinas just don't have.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, it's a pretty special place to go see.
It's a neat place, and right here, the jetty here is probably 10 or 15 feet high. Right behind it then is that south end of the lake. So whenever there's any kind of wind blowing, you can be docked here, and it sounds like ocean waves, crashing all night on the shore. And it's a fun place. Okay.
It's also a little bit sketchy, just so you know. They made it sound really great. It is great, but it's also kind of sketchy.
Mike, you should tell about the audio on this.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
So, when I woke up in the morning, it was beautiful. Birds are going and stuff. It was also the morning of the start of the duck hunt. So, the actual video on that one is, there are shotguns going off. Like, I couldn't get a clean audio. So the next morning I went for a run. I live on the north end of the lake. So I recorded the sound of the birds, which is the same birds. I overlaid that audio over
Sorry,
there.
Mike. I'm sorry, Mike, but that's so funny.
Same birds. Same birds.
I literally, now I just want to hear the original audio.
Once the hunt started, it was crazy. I was scared to leave there. And I was shocked.
Part of your mass is getting shot.
It does feel sketch in that's kind of a really rural area down there.
Right.
And it's a lot of locals just coming out, going out fishing. They're all going fishing to Bird Island.
They're not playing banjos, are they?
That's some banjo players.
That end of the lake, I mean, it could be. There could be.
But it's really fun. It's not dangerous.
No, it's not dangerous.
I've never been knifed or mugged there.
It's so far. I mean, when you're down there, you're pretty far away from a lot of the residential areas of that.
Yeah,
so
it's out in the
They're
sticks.
just not used to sailboats.
Yeah, they
Oh,
definitely,
yeah.
people will be like a sailboat when you go in there. It's pretty funny.
But most of them speak English.
Sorry about the audio. That was just
I
the
told
funniest
Erickson,
story
don't tell
ever.
anyone, but the audio is technically a lie.
So he told
It's
everyone.
so funny though. I'm like, now I want to hear shotguns going. All right.
Okay, next one. switch gears now. Oh, and another thing back on the, if you go into Lincoln, look on Google Maps. I mean, look at a satellite imagery when you get down there. You can see what you're headed into. It's much easier to get into it in the light.
Oh, yeah.
Just because it's a tight entrance, and you got to make an immediate right-hand turn when you go in. So it's good to see it and try to do it in the light the first time.
I don't recommend going in at night.
It's like, most times I end up going in at night, even though I've done it before, it's terrifying every
It is,
time.
it is.
I've never had trouble, but,
And the jetty's like on both sides, like the bushes, you're like, where, okay, turn.
and I do keep a list, I'll post it, of when the lake's at a, I'll record the depth of the lake, and then when I do a circumnavigation, I'll write down, what I read, the minimum depth I read in each marina as I go in. So I'll post that, that's helpful then, so you just check the water level, look at that, and you'll know if you can make it in with your boat or not. This year's looking like it'll be fine. Okay.
Isn't it like off to the east from Lincoln Beach, it's pretty shallow, like there's the
Yes.
sandy beaches over kind of on Lake Shore, Spanish Fork,
Mhm.
and you could wade like a mile from the beach and you'd still only be up to your knees.
Yeah, it is, I mean, just outside of that, and it used to be like a resort there, so people would swim, because it's warm, like warm springs in the water there. But going in and out of the marina, you're fine. But yeah, there's a big area down there. Okay, let's talk about sail outs. So the term sail out's really funny. We used to talk about, hey, we should sail out somewhere and do this or do that. And the phrase sail out just stuck. But so we're gonna call them full moon flotillas. And the reason is we're gonna try to do these on the weekend closest to the full moon. So we'll post the dates for those. And this year it's gonna be around the second weekend of every month. And the reason for that is it's just pretty. You got good light, moon's out, and it's kind of magical to get together over there. So let's talk about this one. This is Pelican Bay Marina, and we're going to talk in a minute about the map because a lot of people on their first time, there's a lot of different marinas over there people go to, and they're the wrong marina. But then you can see you come over, and we'll all tie up to usually the south dock because the waves are a little bit less through the night. There is a north dock where you have overflow parking there if we need it.
You want me to go back to the map?
I know, I have another one coming
Oh,
up here.
okay.
So it's gorgeous, and when you get over here, there's a bathroom and flush toilet there. They shut it off between 11 a.m. and 6 a.m. or something like that. It's locked, so plan accordingly. But there are trees there and bushes. But yeah, go ahead. So go ahead and hit play on this. This is a video Derek took a bunch of our footage and just put this together. It's like a minute and a half, 2 minutes. You kind of see what it's like.
Notice how fast everyone's going.
This was a slow and
Yes, we were really flying on this one. Right there. About put the leaf blower to the spinnaker.
It's fun though, when you just take off around between 4 and 6, everybody takes off. And so you see a bunch of boats out there trying to find the wind on the way over. This year, a lot of people ended up motoring the last 2 miles. They were like 0 wind.
We're really sailing there.
But then as you pull into the marina, I mean, people come out of the dock and help you dock your boat and stuff. So you just want to have dock lines ready and your fenders ready. People point you where to go. And Amanda always brings cupcakes.
Yeah, time you
But
get
seriously,
seriously.
they're not here tonight, but. And the smallest boat anyone sailed over there, one year someone brought a Lido, a little 14-footer, and sailed over and spent the night over there too.
I have a goal to bring the Hobie 14 over
Nice.
one time from Provo. I can move on if you want. It's a long video.
Well, okay, so a couple of things to think about. Bring food. You can also get like DoorDash or Uber Eats to deliver down to that marina, which probably the first time that we did it, and we went and ordered pizza that was delivered down, and it was fun. It was like being in San Diego in a harbor. You get food right at the dock and stuff.
Or
If-
talk to Kent Lemon.
I was gonna say, if you forget food, I'm gonna probably guess Kent has a steak with your name on it. And a lemon pie,
Cracker Jack.
Cracker Jacks.
But then, at night, then we'll, everyone's just sitting out on the docks, lying to each other about great sailing accomplishments. But it's,
You guys have been lying?
let's go to the next one.
Wait, that's not it. Hold on.
Just arrow forward and it should go back.
There we go.
Okay, so let's talk about where this is. So if you haven't been, let's talk first about where this is. So here's Provo, and you're either gonna come from Provo or Linden, right? Linden, I mean, on a good wind day, it's like a 30-minute shot across the lake. From Provo, it's 6 hours sometimes.
Speak for yourself.
But I would always plan for 3 hours.
Yeah,
It-
it's
it's
2 to
2.5,
3.
3 hours
Yeah.
usually.
I mean, you can motor across in like an hour.
Yeah. So, but the shot from Linden straight across, and it's funny because a lot of people from Linden may come, and some of them won't stay the night. They'll just come over to hang out with everybody for the evening and then run back 'cause it's so short. When you come from Provo, you really feel like you accomplished something because you sailed up mountain all the way up there. You're into the wind the whole time, trying to figure out the wind patterns. It's really fun. But when you look at the marinas, people will say we're sailing over to Saratoga or Pelican Bay. And so a lot of people will put in, you search on Google Maps for Saratoga, and there is a Saratoga City Marina right here. There's a El Nautica boat club right here. It's down here. This is Pelican Bay Marina. And so you notice here's Pelican Point that sticks out. It's, I don't know, probably a mile and a half north of Pelican Point. That's the one that you're headed to. And when you come into it at night, this is what you're gonna see. So right here is the main marina. So you're coming from Provo's back this way. You'll sail up and then just motor into here. We're usually around this dock. Good to look at it on with a satellite imagery so you know what you're gonna pull into. It's easy to get confused and pull into this one, which is more of a swim, non-motorsport rec area. Only sadness lies here. Make sure you're pulling into this stuff. But it's funny, 'cause a lot of times we'll sail over and the wind ends up being good in the evening, so people will stay out just racing up and down in that good wind.
If you come in at night too, there's lighted markers on the jetties.
Yeah, you'll see lights on the jetties, and usually there's buoys out here. And then you'll see, if you look closer, you can see up on the shore, there's some lighted facilities. But this water pump station, is this one right here?
It's,
You'll get mixed up sometimes looking at it, so you want to make sure you're looking at your map if you're coming in at night for the first time.
The road going up from the marina goes straight up the mountain, so you can kind of guide it where you
Yes,
can.
yeah. And it's, as you sail up the lake, you'll see it's really the start of the houses is right here. I mean, probably about a half a mile from the marina. That's where the houses start. So if you're just going by sight, aim for the south end of the houses in Saratoga, and you're going to be
You'll
right
hit it
close.
right on the money.
And then usually we're on channel 68. Derek's on 69, and
Nice.
and we are.
I was waiting.
So you
for
can
the
talk to
to
everybody
come up.
sailing in, and as you come in, radio and ask
Just
what's
bring a
going
radio.
on.
We'll talk about that.
Okay, let's go next. Okay, so this one, we'll do these on the full moon flotillas are on the full moon weekend, right? The one exception is June, which we do on Sailstice. And Sailstice is, you can go to sailstice.org. That is we celebrate, it's the longest sailing day of the year. I mean, it's a worldwide thing. People post their videos of it and pictures and stuff, and yacht clubs all over do activities just to get out. And I mean, really, June 21st being solstice is the longest day. So this is usually the weekend closest to the 21st.
If you go to the website, you can buy their merchandise too, and every year they do a new Burgee flag for that year of Sailstice. Kind of cool.
Yeah,
You can win prizes too.
Okay, so here's about the prizes.
Okay.
Nice lead-in.
Thank
Okay.
And
So they have a video contest every year, and oh my gosh, there are a lot of really sucky video people. I mean, some years, it is someone, literally held up their phone for like 3 minutes videoing nothing happening, and they end up being like second place, right? So my son one year, he's in high school, he's into video, and so he shot this video, it's just like a minute long, and so he submitted it, and of course he won. And you'll see it's just a much better quality video, and he made it look like really active, and there wasn't much wind for most of the day. And this actually included some stuff from the regatta, right, which is a little earlier in the month. But what he won at the end, he got a brand new GoPro camera and a big Mantis backpack, and I mean, just really cool stuff. So let's, Chelsea, let's enter, right?
Chelsea's on this.
So here's his video.
Oh, that's the noise for changing the slide, okay. This could still be a Catalina infomercial. The Catalina 270. With a wind kill in Swift.
So you notice his shots are really close and short. If you look closely, there's just nothing going on.
The boats are like not even moving.
He's standing like, oh my gosh, I swim
Oh, I
faster
love
than that.
Hey, why?
Line whacking.
So it is, as you've got somebody, if you're into a little bit of videography, I mean, enter it, because it really does a good job getting, I think, publicity out for our group. But we can easily beat the entire world with the quality of video. Even with no wind, we can beat the rest of the world. So.
Good question. So in June, do you just do this one, or is it, you do
We
the sale
just,
as well?
so on that sales this weekend, we do the sail out to Pelican Bay. So we've just moved it from the full moon week to that
Oh, I see.
weekend around the 21st.
Okay.
And we'll put these dates on the Utah Lake Sailors webpage on Facebook, so everyone can see the event when it's coming. And please come. It is, the more boats we get, the more fun it is. And there isn't anything official about it. No one's sponsoring it. So, I mean, we'll put the dates up, but there may be some months, I mean, Derek made almost every one last year. Some months he may not be able to make it, but I'm still going to try to go. And we just all know that we're going to get a crowd over there that weekend. So, and it really helps everybody just contribute, participate. Even at night, then we'll end up
The more
sitting
the
on
merrier.
different boats.
The
and,
more the merrier.
Yeah, the more the merrier. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk for a couple minutes about wind on Utah Lake. So just a couple of things about wind patterns, especially if you're trying to do, sail over Pelican Bay, and just different things we noticed. So add your tips here as we walk through this. You can see this was actually, was it 2 years ago? We had our the regatta, and this great big storm blew in on the north end of the lake. It was amazing. It was a big storm. We're going to talk about some of the different things about sailing on the lake. So here's some data that's really interesting. I mean, we all sail this and experience it. But what we're looking at is that, for each month, what are the percent of windy days and how much wind is there? So this is looking at, you can see the red bars are how many days of the month had wind over 25, the orange is over 20, and down to the green is, it was over 10. And so you see kind of some of these patterns that are interesting. You see, towards September, October, I mean, things really drop off. But a lot of these months with wind over 10, those are actually you still good sailing days. These reds get, if you're over 25, that's going to be crazy. And if you watch some of these, you feel that when you're out there. When more wind, less wind some months. Let's go to the next one. But there are also surprises that are not just for sailboats. This was in 2018. This plane, where they're bush pilots. They were just practicing landings on the far side of the lake. I think, Todd, you were out on this one. You remember this? And this guy was practicing, and although the wind for September September is usually pretty low. We know as sailors, I mean, there are gusts and things that happen that aren't in the forecast, aren't even caught, you just see them visually with some tells coming. Anyway, this guy flipped his plane, he luckily was in a foot of water, but flipped his plane and crashed it on the far side of the lake. Let's go to the next one. So a little bit more information here. This is the wind direction distribution chart. So this one's for May. And you kind of look at this, you can see, so most of the wind's coming out of the northwest in May. You see kind of the percent of that. Sometimes we'll get stuff out of the southeast, and those are usually when fronts are coming through, right? We'll see shifts in the wind. Let's go to the next one. So this one then shows all of our sailing months, so April through October. You kind of get an idea of what's happening. I mean, you see predominantly the winds out of the northwest. You'll see when you have a little bit less wind, especially into July. And then you'll see like in August, we start getting a lot more monsoonal stuff that comes up from the south. So you see that pattern shifts down here. Anyway, these are just really interesting to think about what you're experiencing and what you'll feel as you.
Where is this recorded?
This is Provo Airport, and this one is daytime hours, so daytime winds. And I can't remember what year it was in the last couple of years. Okay, so a couple of interesting things that happen. I'm sure you all have pictures similar to these. This one is taken from up just outside Pelican Point Marina. I was sailing then from Linden over to Pelican, and it was a pretty good day. I mean, about 10, 15 miles an hour. I was just sailing across to spend the night, and I watched down this storm system had built up down, right outside of Nebo, Spanish Fork. It was slowly rolling. It's up about around Provo here, and I was just keeping an eye on it, but I didn't think it would do anything for me. It's a very slow-moving storm cell down on that south end of the lake. And as I got close to Pelican Point, so I'm far from that, all of a sudden my wind jumped from 10 to 15 to 20. I'm recording 25 here, and that's when I decided I gotta put some sails down. So I furled the jib and started jumping up to pull the main down. When I got back to the cockpit, it was at 47 is what I clocked it out when I got back. So in probably 3 minutes, everything changed fast. But it was everything coming off of this storm system here, because you have a lot of cold, dense air up above, hot air down here, and so they're trying to switch places, and then suddenly you get, I don't know if this one was technically a microburst, but you get that type of pattern, where suddenly all that air is rushing down and it just shoots everywhere across the lake. So you really want to watch for these. You can it's those days you have kind of that tornado feel in the air, where just something seems kind of eerie. You really want to watch for those. Stay on your toes, because you can get caught really fast in these type of winds. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of wind patterns that I think are really helpful to understand. Derek mentioned some. There's one called katabatic winds, and these are, we refer to them a lot as canyon breezes, right? Katabatic just means downward. And what happens is up some of these main canyons in the morning, let's think Spanish Fork's the most predominant one. You think of overnight, that colder air really groups up at the top of these canyons, up in those mountain valleys. And then as the sun comes up, this area down here is warming up. So you imagine what's happening. The air down in the valley is warming up. It's starting to rise. And so you have very low pressure, right, as that comes up. And all of this stuff that's cold at the top, that's very high pressure, you really compressed molecules up there, it starts running down the canyons to fill the void that's happening down in the valley. So then you get in the morning, starting probably a half hour before sunrise and maybe running an hour after, hour and a half after, you get these great canyon breezes. And they come, there's 3 of them that we really notice. Spanish Fork's the most predominant. And Derek knows he does a lot of trips around Bird Island. And you'll see in the mornings, boy, that is a great breeze to sail on. You can be here in Provo and even right around Provo. There's probably about a mile with nothing going on at sunrise. But you just come out about a mile and you start picking up that canyon breeze, and it'll jump from 8 to 12, and you'll be almost 20 mile an hour wind to come down here around Bird Island at sunrise. It's awesome. It's really great sailing. Another one that you'll see comes out of Provo Canyon, not as pronounced. And when Provo Canyon comes out, it'll start to, Spanish Fork it comes and blows across the lake, but it also spreads out, comes almost up to Provo, and that wind just kind of, it just splays out once it gets down to the valley. And then the same thing will happen here. So you got this wind coming down and it'll start to spread out. Usually there's a bit of a northwesterly anyway happening, pretty light in the mornings. And then also out of American Fork Canyon, you get a much smaller one. If you're trying to sail from Pelican back to Linden, sometimes you go a little bit north, you can catch that breeze blowing and sail back on that breeze too. So with those, I mean, you're just really watching, especially the mornings, you get those canyon breezes, and you can really sail. I'll go a lot of times like right at sunrise in the mornings, like 5:30 in the middle of summer, and sail for a couple hours before I've got my first meetings at work. And just because it's great sailing, you're the only one out there. And then a lot of times coming back from Pelican, a lot of us, what we'll do is we'll get up around sunrise and start sailing back. And when that happens, you have, a lot of times you'll have a slight northwesterly breeze. So there's a couple patterns to take back. One is, usually what people do is they'll either come across this way and down, or they'll come down and over. And they think about the wind you're sailing on. First when you come out, sometimes you'll have a northwesterly, but if you come south, you're going to pick up this stuff from Spanish Fork that's spreading out and blowing across the lake. And so you can use that wind quite a bit. This, another pattern that's kind of fun is if you sail across, you're trying to head for Provo, but with this wind blowing and a little bit left over from Spanish Fork, you're going to end up, you're probably coming almost straight across. And then what will happen is, as you get here with these winds starting to spread out, pretty soon you'll notice your boat's headed straight up Timpanogos and then to Linden before long. And so what you can do there is, I'll get over to about within a mile or two of shore where you're just, you realize I can't go anywhere that I want to go, is turn on the motor and just for about a mile punch through that kind of dead space. And then you'll pick up, again, where this canyon breeze is more pronounced. And you'll be able to sail really close to shore and sail all the way down to here. But it's funny because when you watch yourself sailing across, you'll be heading in a direction and pretty soon you realize, to stay as tight to the wind as I can, I'm drifting out this direction. The reason is these winds are angling as they come out of these places. So it's tricky it's fun to play with, but
It's the pointing, it's the worst pointing situation you've ever, but if you want to learn how to point your bow, that's where you
it's
do it.
constantly changing.
You're either going to Linden or you're going to, what is that, Mosita?
Mhm. You'll end up headed down this way.
Exactly where you don't want to go.
Yeah. And you'll look, because a lot of times, and you can look at a couple things, right? You can look over here, there's these smokestacks and vineyard. A lot of times you can see if that canyon breeze is more pronounced, they'll start to shift. You can kind of see what's happening. There's the quarry here at Pelican Point. Usually it doesn't do much in the morning, but in the evening you can look and see what's happening on the other side of the lake. If you watch the way the dust is blowing from there. You've got the windmills down here. There's things you can look at and see kind of what's happening around the lake. Because the forecast, there aren't weather stations at all these points. We've got one in the middle of the lake. So it's more, you just have to kind of watch and understand what's happening with the pressure around the valley. Then you know what the wind is likely to be doing. So one thing also that's interesting, so I sailed several years out of Linden, and I've been in Provo for many years. There's some differences sailing from both places. You get that northwesterly wind puts a really good wind pattern. It's more pronounced kind of over on this west side of the lake, or maybe just a little bit left of center. And so you could be sailing out of Provo or out of Linden, and the winds, let's say you're sailing out of Provo, maybe your winds are 10 to 15 here. As you get out more into this wind channel, you're going to see probably 3 or 4 mile an hour shift in this exact same wind as you get further out. It's a little more exciting the further out that you get. Same thing in Linden. It can be a little bit quieter here, but as soon as you get a little bit further into this area, the wind will pick up a couple miles an hour, just enough to make it fun and get your heart running. And then a few other things. The wave patterns are less pronounced up here coming out of Linden because you don't have a lot of nautical fetch for that to build up, right? You're coming over just a couple miles of the lake. By the time you get down to Provo in the same wind, you'll get bigger waves. And so it's kind of fun. And a lot of times you'll see, you know, we're out here out at a Provo, you'll have these waves that really, you know, run down like, you know, wind-built waves that run down the lake. And so, you know, when you go downwind with, you know, the waves at your back, you pick up and surf your boat. You can also surf across the waves as you're going, because the waves coming like this, and you're sailing on a beam reach. Oh my gosh, that's fast. And you'll get your boat up just angled slightly off, with the waves coming like this, and angled just a little bit to the south of it. And you'll pick up and ride that wave along for, I mean, it feels like a long time, but it's like you're surfing out there. It's really, just fun times out there. And then the other thing to watch are frontal systems. Anytime you're looking at the temperature and it says, you see it's going to suddenly drop one day, that means you're going to get winds that are going to shift on you, right? You have ahead of a frontal system, you'll get winds out of the south, and then the cold comes in. So that's another pattern. Anything else you guys, am I missing any big wind things for?
Well, I have a question.
Yeah.
It's not really, it kind of goes along with wind, but what would you do if you were out in a thunderstorm got you? I mean, and you're too far from any marina?
Probably die. You know?
Definitely hold on to the mast.
Lift the mask and ground yourself. Move on. Yeah.
So I've been caught, I got caught one time coming back from Bird Island, and a literal white wall, like a squall came, and we got stuck about a mile from Provo in lightning that was hitting within less than a mile. Really the best thing you can do is, of course, make sure your sails are down. You need to be in the cabin of that boat, because it's the most protection you're gonna get. If you're across the lake and you do have an opportunity to get into a marina, it's always suggested to get off the lake and get as close to shore as you can. You're safer there. But if you're out there caught in it and there's nowhere to go, get inside your boat. And because if the lightning does strike, it's going to hit the mast and go straight through the bottom of your boat, and so you're mostly going to be protected from it in there.
Yeah, lightning strikes. We were on Lake Dillon a couple years ago in Colorado. There's a boat that was struck at the dock. And it struck and they thought everything was okay. And then it was a couple hours the next day they came back, the boat had sunk. And when that lightning came down the mast, it shot just a million little pinholes through the hull, right, as it tried to get through the boat.
Oh, and if it does strike the boat, it's an opportunity to get an even better boat. So it's not always So look at it as a positive.
Same thing if you drive your boat into a tree. You get a boat that's 2 or 3 years
Do it in
newer.
February though, not in April.
Yeah, you lose months of stay. Todd, you have survived the longest day without getting struck by lightning. What would you add?
Lightning fascinates me. I could tell you a story, but I'd rather quote the Rangers. I asked them point blank, has there ever been a strike on a sailboat on Utah Lake? They said no, but they have documented open boats, fishing boats, aluminum boats that have been struck. They didn't say if it was a fatality or not, but
They deserve it.
that it gives me the creeps. We usually pull our boats in. Lightning is closer than 5 miles. We try and come in, we kind of judge if the storm's going away from us or towards us. The 5-mile limit is probably a good idea to get off as quick as you can. I just really like to say, you just pray that it doesn't hit you. I don't know if you remember Clay and Kim, thank you. When they get in trouble, they anchor out. So to each his own, but if the winds are too strong and the waves are just overpowering you and you're tired and wet and getting hypothermic, you can throw out an anchor, and that storm should be over with in about an hour.
Yeah, that's a good point. When the storms come, they are usually, the brunt of it is fast moving. So you're in trouble, throw out an anchor and or you be Derek and then throw up your spinnaker.
Well, so another thing to mention too, if you guys have the KSL weather app, you can look on there and actually set for lightning strikes. So if you know that the weather is going to be kind of unsettled, one thing that I typically do before I'm even coming to the lake is I want to see lightning around the area of the lake, like out in the West Desert. And if that front's moving in, you know, that's a good indicator to like, okay, yeah, we're gonna see lightning on the lake. And yeah, like I will plan ahead, like, you know, you showed the clouds, right, the unsettled clouds. If you've already seen on the map that lightning has been striking, that's probably a good indication, like, hey, go sail, you can go sail, but maybe don't leave the marina too far away. Like, keep it in your area, because you may need to run back in. And so just, it's, you know, as sailors, we say be 10 steps ahead of your boat and the weather. And that's really where this becomes important.
Yeah.
And my GSL app will like tell me like lightning is striking near you.
Detected, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
really funny, sometimes I'll be like at the office working on patients and stuff. I'll just like, yeah, that's so, you know, I could get off the lake in case there's a lightning storm.
No, that's practice safe dental hygiene.
I'll just like talk out of nowhere and then coffee or whatever.
One other thing that we look at, I look at anyhow, is it's a radar app. It's real time, it's moving. If you see red eyes in the middle of this front that's coming through, you kind of look at the time, it's sequencing off. If it's heading right over Utah Lake with red eyes, you don't want to go out.
So, and one other thing I'll mention here too is, especially sailing out of Provo, if you ever see this, you can see dust being blown up down here. It is like a low white fog, and when you see that forming down on this, you know, southwest corner of the lake, because you've got these lake mountains right here, but this is kind of open desert, so a lot of times winds will blow hard here and blow out onto the lake. When you see that low white fog, it's time to roll up sails. I mean, it is, because that will come, you know, usually within like 10, 15 minutes. It's
It's a
hitting the
wall
lake.
too. It'll hit you really
It is-
hard.
That is like a wall. We had, one time, my son and I, we had a little 14-foot Lido, and we were sailing in the outer harbor here, and we saw this wind across. That's why we stayed in the harbor, and we decided, let's see what happens if we stay on the boat when that thing hits. So the 14-foot Lido. And so we were zipping back and forth faster and faster and faster, and when that wall hit, it was like, and it's so fast that we're, you know, hanging off the side of the boat trying to keep the keel in the water as we're zipping back and forth. When that wall hit, like physics stopped, and suddenly that boat just blew sideways straight across the water up onto the shore there. We're hanging on to it. It's like, it's a really fast wind, so. And then the other time that I'll see that same wind dust pattern, sometimes when something's coming out of this canyon or, you know, off of Nebo, you'll see that kind of build. It's a higher one that blows over Spanish or Springville and Provo, and you'll kind of see this wall of fog. It's much higher and it starts blowing up, and that's another one that happens sometimes.
One thing I wanted to point out real quick is sometimes you'll get these storms that'll come this way, and believe it, they'll actually wrap around the mountains and kind of reflect or deflect back. And in fact, the hailstorm that hit Linden last year was a good example of that. If I remember, it came and kind of wrapped and then hit Linden really hard.
Yeah, it is interesting with the mountains around. There's a lot of different patterns, right? Because anything that's happening, you know, those mountains are going to be a wall, and so it can roll
All the
things
storms like to
around.
collect too, right, against those mountains.
And you'll see a lot of times, you know, when it's hot in the summer, you'll have a lot of cold, dense air on the top of the mountains. When that cold, dense air moves out over, that's when you get a lot of these vertical wind stuff. You know, get microbursts and similar patterns. And it's interesting for New Testament fans. This is like the Sea of Galilee. And when you read back in the New Testament, there's times when they talk about people out sailing out on the lake, and they'll talk about a fierce wind blowing down on the lake, which is really interesting because they have the same type of patterns there when they sail, where you'll get those storms that come over, and suddenly it's just coming straight down on the lake and blowing across. Where normally you talk about wind coming from the side. So it's you see it in different lakes around the world. Okay, amen. That's the end of the New Testament.
Oh,
I remember once back in the old days, and maybe I colored this a little bit different, but you were pulling out of Provo with maybe 3 generations in single years back. You were raising your mainsail.
Yes.
And you got hit, and your mainsail got laid out into the lake.
Yep, so it was the first, I had a Catalina 25, and it was our first time putting it in at Provo. And so it's just, you know, here at the dock, and so So we're heading out very naive, motored out here, raised my sail just as we went out onto the lake. And I wasn't familiar with the lake. It had kind of that eerie, almost tornado type feel, right? But I was starting to head out, and we weren't 50 yards outside of the marina. I had my main up, and all of a sudden a microburst. I don't know if it had started from here or just somewhere on the lake, but it hit us, and in the blink of an eye, it knocked the boat, as it was Academy 25, knocked it flat in the water and ripped the mainsail off. Like every slug ripped on that sail, and the boat came back up. And luckily, we had little kids on the boat, and luckily no one fell off. I don't know how we didn't, but I mean, I was so confused. It was so fast that happened. So really watch, you see those, when I came back into the dock, I don't remember who it was, I didn't know the rate at the time, and there were only a few people still in our provo. But someone came back in, and some guy said, he's here, I'm really mad at you. But he said, he goes, yeah, we usually don't go out when we see that kind of wind pattern out there. I'm like, what do they need to know?
You know, husbands who are trying to take their wives out for the first time sailing, avoid those
Don't
things.
go.
I did that. My wife doesn't sail with me.
A lot of us husbands have done that move. And then the wives are like, I'm never going with you again. But it's my dream, honey. You ready for the next slide?
Yes, let's go to the next one. Okay, I want to talk for a minute about this one because we don't think about this one very often. This lake is cold a lot of the year. And I think a lot of us think when we're out there sailing, especially if we're out there alone, that if I run into trouble, you know, I can just I'll swim to shore, right? And the reality is very different from that. So I'm just run over a couple of data points. I think this one's really important to remember. Over here, we've got the average temperatures by month out on the lake, okay? And so if you look in here, as we get these, you know, these are flagged as warm, and this is June, July, August. And so you can see there the temperatures are around 70 as the average temperature. But a lot of times we're sailing by, you know, March, April, and it's 50-degree water. Now I was a waterfront director in college for a couple of years and up in the mountains. And we have people come try to do a mile swim in cold water. So these are like older teenagers and, you know, they're leaders out trying to do a mile swim. And even guys who come down, they're kind of in that peak, you know, 17-year-old physical condition. They're on their swim team. Mile swim's not a big deal. But when that temperature's around 50 degrees, most of them could make it about a quarter mile, and they were out, and I couldn't move. We have very few people that can actually swim a mile, even among people who are young, fit, and in shape for swimming. So keep that in mind. A couple of data points then to think about here. So you can kind of see the average temperatures, right? And certainly as we get out towards September, October, or April, May, those temperatures are cold, 50, 60 degrees. We look over here, you can see what happens to the human body when you're in water that's at that temperature. And so if we look at, here's your water temperature, right? So we're going to be really interested in this, you know, 40 to 60 range, because these are our 2 shoulder months. And you look what happens if you're in the water at that time, the point that you lose dexterity, so the ability to move your hands or, you know, any kind of fine digit control, is you're talking 15 minutes the most, a lot of times less than 5 minutes. And what that means, it's not a matter of how tough you are. It is, you think about the physiology of your hand, you've got blood vessels, flexors. I mean, it just freezes up. So you couldn't do something like pull out a cell phone and make a call. Or even if you'd made a call initially and no one answered, or you had to answer a call, you're not going to have that capability after sometimes 5 minutes. And so that's really important to think, you know, what is your backup plan if you fell off your boat or got into trouble? Then we look across here, and you know, even at 60 degrees, you're going to have like a half an hour of movement of your hands before you're really into trouble. And then you look at some of these, like the point that a human body becomes exhausted or unconscious, to the point that you would drown if you didn't have a PFD on. You're talking, you know, 30 minutes to an hour, hour and a half is how long you've got. So this is if you fell off your boat, you really don't have long. Now you think, okay, half an hour, I'm going to swim for the shore. Well, a lot of times we're, you know, a mile or 2 offshore, pretty easy. This stat's really important to remember. Beginning swimmers, which I suggest all of us actually are, In warm water, you can swim a half a mile in 30 minutes. Okay, so if you're a mile or two offshore and you've got 30 minutes of swim time, you're not going to make it. I mean, you'll die before you get to the shore. It's not a matter of determination or will or anything. Now, if you're a great swimmer, maybe you know your different swim times in cold water, but this is 99% of us.
Sea turtles, mate.
And so then look at some of these others, like your maximum swimming time, if you're going to try to self-rescue, you just don't have much time. And you can see here in, if you're beginning in April, you may have 7 minutes that you can actually try to swim and self-rescue, and you'll be done. Now, some of these others, if you have a PFD on, so maybe you lose dexterity in your hands, you can't swim anywhere, you're just floating. I mean, you're talking 2 to 3 hours at these, at the edge of these shoulder seams. It's just, it's not much time.
That'd give you 5X just to wear that thing from time to fall in the water.
And then this one over here, so your maximum survival time, this is with a PFD and with protective gear. So you've got warm gear on, right? I mean, you've got some base layers, and you think a lot of the gear that we wear to stay warm makes it so you really couldn't swim very well. So it's kind of like you're really stuck. But these are just, even if you fell off, you had a PFD, you have good base layers that even kept you a little bit warm in the cold water. Still, you've only got a few hours. You think when you're out there, you tell someone you're going out, you tell someone in your family, they may not expect you for 5 hours, right? So you could really be in trouble. Now, so you can see some of the things to do. I mean, wearing a PFD, absolutely. Warm gear, also important. And a plan then if you fall, how would you signal for help because you don't have one? So I'm going to show you just 3 things real quick that I'll use. And I think, we really are, especially for sailing solo. And one is on your PFD, you can get them to have a harness built into them, such as these 2 big clips. And then what that lets you do is this doubles it not just as a PFD, but also as a harness that you can clip in with. Let me do this one first. Second one is a jack line. And so this is just a piece of flat webbing. It's 30 feet long. Just flat webbing like climbing webbing. There's nothing magic about it. You want it to be flat. You'll tie it up at your bow and then run it all the way back to the cockpit and tie it off to something. So you've got that line. And then what you'll do is clip into this while you're in the boat with a safety harness. I sewed this one, but you can buy them. It's just got a quick release on one end. You clip onto the jack line, and on the other side there is a special little shackle that you can. Is what you hook onto your harness. In this situation, that let's say you're on your boat, you fall off, and you're still tied to the boat, but if your boat's moving at all, it's really hard to keep your head above water. If you're going a couple miles an hour, you have to do a quick release of that. This under pressure, if you pull this pin, this will just pop right open. And so you can get released from it. Now the problem is, you'll see a lot of videos on YouTube where people say, how do I get myself back onto my boat if I've fallen over the side and I'm getting dragged along? It's important to think about. It's super hard to do. It's really, there are a lot of crazy videos. People have rope ladders hanging off the side of their boat that they think they'll climb back up. And chance of getting your foot caught on that and just dragged backwards in the water would be terrible. Some people will run, a polypropylene line off the back of their boat. So if they fell off, they could swim back towards the boat and grab that line. But that's difficult. You ever tried, sometimes we'll have our boat out going, we'll throw a rope out and the kids will tow behind. If you're going more than 3 miles an hour, you're just getting dragged underwater. There's not a lot you can do. So when you run a jack line, you'll see a lot that the advice is, run one down each side of the boat, right? So then, if I'm in my boat sailing solo, I'll have that jack line run, and I can just take that harness, a tether, and clip it in. And if I've got to go forward, I'm tied to the boat. But if you run the jack lines on the outside of your boat, we have small boats. There's a chance you'd fall off. And really, when you think about this, the last place you want to be is off the boat. So now I just run one jack line from the bow as close to the center of the boat as I can, so inside my shrouds and everything, and have it fairly tight. So then with that 3-foot tether, I can go up either side of the boat, but if I were to fall, I'm not falling overboard, right? It's keeping me on the boat. Where I think a lot of the advice we see on YouTube and other places is thinking about a bigger boat, where you need to run it down both sides because you need to be able to, get to more surface area on the boat.
Looks like you've thought that out a bunch.
Oh, man, well, you just think about this, like, how fast you'd die, and what that'd mean to your family and everything, and it's really not that much trouble to put a harness on and be out there. The other thing is if you're in cold water, sailing with a buddy boat, on the Great Salt Lake, I sailed up there in the winter, and these hypothermia tables don't go below 32, but that water a lot of times will dip down into the mid-20s, being salty. So the hypothermia tables don't even go that low. So a lot of times you sail in the winter up there, you'll always have a buddy boat out there with you. So if you ran into trouble, you've got someone else that could come to your rescue and keep an eye on you. And the thing is with falling in, it's when you least expect it. I don't know, do you have any stories about that, Todd?
Yeah, well, I'm replaying when I bought the Cape Glory in Lake Dillon, you mentioned Lake Dillon before. And the previous owner was telling me that they don't, with a man overboard, they don't turn around firstly and go back to get the person in the water. It's so cold that they phone the search and rescue people to come out and pick up the body and then they'll make their turn back. But yeah, hypothermia and cold water below the surface of Lake Dillon, it'll just